A disciple of Christ, I will never leave him. He is the truth and the life. He's the strength in my weakness. I will shine till the whole world sees.
Hey, welcome to this week's sermon preview. Glad to be back with all of you. Nick, good to be back with you
Yes.
doing this thing again.
It is. It's a pleasure to be able to record with you again.
Yeah.
Glad to have you back in the office and back at it. So, Lance, let me fill you in a little bit on the last couple weeks, specifically as we've been jumping into this new series, our Be One, Make One series that you and I worked on together. And so the very first week we talked about the call of a disciple, and then last week we talked about the cost of a disciple. And so then this week we're gonna kind of continue in that same vein, that same theme of what does it mean to be a disciple? What does it mean to be one? And we're gonna talk about the heart of a disciple. So Lance, when you think about the idea of the heart of the disciple, what comes to your mind?
Well, I just first think about the heart and how that's pumping blood throughout the rest of your body, and without the heart, you really can't live. And so, the heart of the disciple really is more what is just internally going on that then affects, or people see what happens outward from what's going on inside.
It kind of ends up being like that central core thing of your being, right? Like, obviously you have the organ, the heart organ itself, but you also have the heart as like what we would understand it almost as like the center of who we are, our emotions, our desires, things like that, right? Even more so, like in our world, we would talk about our heart almost even more as more important than like our brain would be. Like the heart is the center of what our being is, right? So we're going to talk about the heart of the disciple. And so as we look at this, we're going to be looking at John chapter 13, verses 31 through 35. And as we're trying to discern what is the heart of the disciple, what do you think is the best way for us to go about figuring out what the heart of a disciple is?
Yeah, I think you have to look at Jesus himself. I mean, whenever you're studying what someone or who you should be like, I think Jesus is the perfect example of who you should study.
Yeah, which that makes so much sense with what we've talked about, what a disciple is. Like a disciple's goal is to orient themselves around their teacher, essentially to imitate their teacher. So if we are disciples of Jesus, then our goal is to imitate him, to imitate the teacher. And so when we're talking specifically about the heart of a disciple, the best way to answer what is the heart of the disciple is to answer the question, what's the heart of Jesus? Right? And within our passage today, we actually see that the heart of Jesus come out in a couple different ways, in who he is and what he did, and then also what he has asked us to do. And specifically, he says like, do this as I have done for you, right? So I'm not going to give any of those away because I don't want to give too much of the sermon away. And so kind of my challenge for you, or maybe a reflection item for you, is to look at this passage, John 13, 31 through 35, and ask yourself, what do I learn about the heart of Jesus in this passage? And if from this passage you're like, I'm just maybe a little unclear on that, maybe just look at the entirety of the New Testament and see like, what do I learn about the heart of Jesus from the passages that I know, or the pieces of the scriptures that I'm familiar with? What do I know about the heart of Jesus, and how does that relate to me and my heart as a disciple of Jesus, right? So to know what our heart should be, we need to know what the heart of Jesus is. It's kind of the bottom line. So figuring out what that looks like will help us in our own quest to have the true heart of a disciple. Okay? All right. We'll see you then.
I'm a disciple of Christ. I will never leave him. He is the truth and the life. He's the strength in my weakness. I will shine.